Starting to trickle in. We'll just give it a minute for everyone to join us today. Hi, everyone. Just giving it 1 minute. Although I see the number of attendees trickling in slowing down, so I think perhaps we'll formally get started. So to begin, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Megan Mahoney, and I'm the Director of Scientific Affairs and Training Programs with BioKenRx. And I'm really pleased to welcome everyone to today's Summit Speaker Series session, which is a series of talks that brings together our funded network investigators to talk about their science, to talk about what's going on in their labs. And today is a special session that I'm very pleased to introduce momentarily. So as many of you know, today does mark Earth Day. And so what better day to have Dr. Rebecca Auer and Carole Doré present on their topic today. So the topic today is reducing carbon footprint in research labs, one pipette tip at a time. This is an encore presentation from our summit, but I think it's a really great opportunity to provide some, I think, what's going to be tangible outputs of or outcomes that you can actually take away from today and implement in your own facilities. So I look forward to hearing from all of you and feedback what that may look like. Before we get started, I acknowledge that BioKenRx and I are on the lands of the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. We acknowledge and respect our traditional hosts and thank them for allowing us to operate on these lands. And I personally am living and residing in Ottawa, and I too am on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. So this is a national network. You, I'm sure, are coming from various different territories across Canada and perhaps elsewhere. And so I do encourage you to learn more about the traditional land in which you reside by going to this website, so nativeland.ca, and learning more there. Um, for those of you who are new to BioKenRx, welcome. Basically, I'd just like to highlight who we are. So we are a national Canadian network that is now funded through the Canadian government's Strategic Science Fund. We are Canada's immunotherapy network, and we're composed of scientists, clinicians, cancer stakeholders, including patient partners and those with lived experiences, NGOs and industry partners coming together, ultimately trying to accelerate cancer immunotherapies from bench to bedside. So two of the ways that we do that are through our translational research program and training program, along with many other complementary activities. And so I do recommend, if you don't know us, to check out our website at biokenrx.com. And so finally, I would just maybe, before I hand it over to our speakers for today, highlight that I want you to stay tuned for more information about our Summit for Cancer Immunotherapy. We will be hosting one this coming, well, year, I guess, technically next year, in spring 2025, and stay tuned for more information. We're at the point of locking in those final details, and we look forward to having you all attend and participate in our annual Summit for Cancer Immunotherapy. So now I'd like to launch into our session today by introducing our two speakers. So first we'll have Dr. Rebecca Auer, who many of you know and who wears many hats. So today I'm not sure which hat you'll be wearing, Rebecca, but I know you're a senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital. You're a researcher and a surgical oncologist affiliated with the OHRI and the Ottawa Hospital. And then I suppose recently, and not on this slide here, you have been appointed as the Executive Vice President of Research and Innovation at the Ottawa Hospital and CEO and Scientific Director of the OHRI. So congrats on that and welcome today. And then we also have Carole Doré, and apologies, Carole, I say I missed the accent on your name, but you're coming with us and you're going to be the one telling us about what to do and how to implement some of these changes. So you're the laboratory manager with the Cancer Therapeutics Group at the OHRI, and I really want to thank you both for bringing this presentation to us today. So I'm going to turn my mic off. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll turn it over to you at this point. So thank you.
Can you see my slides now?
Not yet, no.
Sorry, let me just.
And then I
How
think
about
to do the opposite screen sharing. So I think, forget which
that?
one.
I'm so sorry. Of course, I practiced this, and now I'm doing
Yeah, I
it
know.
wrong.
10 minutes ago, no problem, right?
How about now? Does that work?
I saw you press the button, but it still doesn't look full screen.
Okay, let me just. I'm not sure if it's because I did it before. I needed to redo it.
There we go. Looks perfect.
Wonderful. Sorry about that. So thank you, Megan, and thank you to Biocan for the opportunity to talk to you today a little bit about what we've been able to do in our cancer, or we have a combined collaborative cancer research lab at the Ottawa Hospital Research Institute. And I'm really proud of what's happened here over the past really 2 years, went from kind of idea and inception. And even since we presented at Biocan last fall, I think we've have even more things to report. And I'm proud of this, not because I really had anything to do with it. And I think that's important to clarify at the beginning that Carol is really the driver of this, as well as the trainees in our lab. And I think that's one of the most amazing parts of this is it's really driven by a team of people who believe so strongly. But it really could be driven by any and all labs because the things that we have been able to accomplish can be accomplished in any lab. And I think that's what the point we want to try and get across today. I won't spend too much time in the introduction because I think it's just, we're at a point where none of this really needs to be said anymore. But if you just kind of think about what we talk about, climate change, global warming, etc. I think when I was younger, that was really something that was happening in the Arctic. It was about glaciers melting, and this picture is a really strong example of how impressive that change is. But I think when we think about it now, really climate change is affecting us in our everyday lives, in our own homes, in our own country, in our own cities. So it's no longer something that's happening in the far north. Um, and I just kind of Googled like most disturbing climate change pictures. And these are some of the pictures that came up, and they really are concerning. I think about the impact on our animals and our biodiversity, but also on entire societies and families, especially in some of the more vulnerable countries, low income and middle income countries. And really, it's time that we started paying attention to this. It's something that is really right at our front door, and we all remember this from last spring. And unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have another similar spring with wildfires. And so when you wake up and the air looks yellow, it really does make you realize that this is at our front door. And the impact is going to have on cancer incidence, cancer risk factors, but also cancer care. Being able to deliver care through these natural disasters is concerning if you're working anywhere in that cancer research and cancer care space. But I think there's a lot of reasons to hope, and I really love this story. And if you ever have a chance to see the movie with Jane Goodall called Reasons for Hope, it's a beautiful series of stories about why we shouldn't give up and why there's still an opportunity to turn the tide. So this is a picture of the nickel um, smelting mine in Sudbury in the 1950s. And the smelting was so terrible, and the copper and nickel causing this acid rain, which basically formed a black coating on the rocks. And it was actually so bad that in 1972, NASA sent its astronauts to train in Sudbury because it was the closest thing to the moon for Apollo 16 and 17. So I think this was really environmental devastation. But then starting in 1978, volunteers and especially students, so high school students, younger students, university students, they started a campaign of liming the ground because they needed to lime the earth so that the acidity would be reduced so that they could plant seeds and saplings. And basically, they've planted over 10 billion trees since then. And now the city has some of the cleanest air in the province. The re-greening process continues. And there's animals that have returned to the lakes. There's trees. You can see this is the same picture from the 1980s and to the more recent 2017. Wildlife has returned, and the community is now a nice place to live. So there's reasons for hope. Back in April 2022, on Earth Day, I was very worried about, what was kind of happening in the world. And I'm the mother of 3 boys, and I thought about their future, and they actually talk about it a lot, climate change. And so I sent this message out to the entire team to say, I don't know what to do, but I know we have to do something. I don't know what to do, but I'm willing to start the conversation with anyone who's interested. And I just sort of said, like, we'll do it together. We'll learn as we go. We'll feel empowered to make suggestions. If we, when we know better, we'll do better, and keep that sort of philosophy. And so please join me for kind of a green team meeting. And essentially, that's where I'm going to hand it over to Carole, because Carole, our lab manager, who's also invested in trying to make some change, kind of showed up and really drove a small group, which is now a much bigger group. We have representation from every one of the 14 labs at the cancer research program, and really made the changes that I think are maybe small in scale globally, but if every single lab can do this, then I think there's a potential for really huge impact. So I'll pass it over to Carole, who's really the brainchild behind everything that's been done up till now.
Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for inviting me and for allowing me to share what we've done and how you can get involved in your labs and what you can do at your end. So over the next few slides, I'll just talk to you about these 4 main points: how to create a green team, that education is really important to have your people be informed on what it is that they can do and change, actual things that you can physically do right now in the lab, and small changes that we've made that we've seen have been a big impact. So first thing is to create a green team. And so the most important part is to find people who are going to be passionate about the environment and who want to see change. So as Rebecca mentioned, we have members from all of our labs. So the floor has several PIs on the lab, 10 to 12 coming in and out sometimes. And so then we have a representative from each of those labs. And so that just brings more ideas, more people who are involved. And it also allows that each lab now has like a representative who kind of can support their staff and students to say, hey, maybe you should do this as an alternative, or don't forget to turn that centrifuge off. Having people directly in the lab kind of really helps to motivate the movement, if you want. And so one other thing that we did on the floor is we all became green ambassadors. I'll talk about that on the next slide a little bit in a few minutes. And we also participate in global Earth activities, so such as Earth Hour. Earth Hour is usually at 8:30 at night, but what we did is we had it throughout the whole day. So the lights were off in the lab for the entire day, which was quite nice actually. And we do Earth Day events to encourage everybody to participate. And we encourage everybody to participate. So as I mentioned, education is key, which means getting informed. So one of the ways you can do that, and that we found that was very useful, was to be a My Green Lab ambassador. So this is a free program that's online. It's hosted by My Green Labs, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. And it's a program that allows you to learn about lab sustainability, get new ideas, and that you can implement in your own lab. I had one of our senior scientists come up to me after watching the videos, and he said, wow, I learned a lot. I didn't expect that he would. And it was very, very informative. The videos take about 90 minutes to watch. You get a certification at the end. And we're pretty happy to say that at least 60% of our trainees and staff are green ambassadors. And so more people who know do better. And so the ambassador program was really great to just inform everyone. Another thing that we do is we have a green tips folder, and we have boards across the lab that we indicate these little green tips, like don't forget to turn your centrifuge off when you're done, or turn off that heating block after you've done using it. These kinds of things, and just as reminders throughout the day that people can visually see. And the green tips folder is just a place where we keep a collection of all of these items, or all of these tips, I should say. So on the education, I'm just going to give you a few facts that I found out recently that were shocking to me, and is that bioresearch labs produce 2% of global plastic waste. Although that might sound like a small amount, it's actually quite a lot. It's enough plastic to cover Manhattan ankle deep in plastic 23 times. So if anybody's been to New York, you know how big that is. And so I think we can do better. We can try to reduce this amount of plastic. Also, I found out that labs use about 4 to 10 times more energy than office space. And that's greatly because of all the equipment that we have. So stuffs like minus 80s and autoclaves and BSCs, fume hoods, they all use a lot of energy. And did you know, this one shocked me, that a traditional autoclave uses almost 200 liters of water per minute. So, and that includes the cold water needed to cool the hot water so it can just go down the drain. So clearly we can do better, and we can maybe purchase better pieces of equipment that won't use so much energy. I want to share this next slide with you because it was absolutely shocking to me to find out that our average fume hood uses about 3.5 houses worth of energy a day. A minus 80 uses about a whole house a day. And our minus 20 and our TC hoods use about half a house a day. So one of our members on the green team counted all of our equipment, and sadly, just our floor alone, we use the equivalent of about 117 houses of energy a day, which is essentially a small village. So we really thought we can do better on this. And so part of the way we educated ourselves was by going to the My Green Labs website and just getting more tools that we could use, and just find out, because it's hard to know, where do you start? How do you create a green team, or how do you encourage your members to participate? So the My Green Lab really is a great organization that has all kinds of different programs that you can tap into, and a few of them I will be talking about a little later. So let's dive into it. What can you actually do right now in your lab? So simple thing, turning off the lights when you leave the lab. Many of us just go home and forget that we can turn off the light. We do this at home when we leave a room, so why should we not do it in the lab? What we've done on the floor is we've actually put timers on our lights, so they turn off from 6 p.m. and are back on at 6 a.m. Now, clearly you can turn the switch on if you're in the lab later, which happens. But just having the timer there ensures that the lights go off every night. And we replaced all of the lights with LED bulbs, which is a lot less energy than your traditional fluorescent light bulb. Another thing that we did is we contacted our plumbing department and asked them to install aerators. These tiny little aerators, they go at the end of the faucet and greatly reduce your water consumption. And that was very easy and no money at all, because our facility actually supplied the aerator. So that was great. We also put timers on our equipment so that on off-peak hours, the equipment turns off. So on things like heat blocks, water baths, centrifuges, PCR machines, all kinds of other equipment that we generally leave on, but really doesn't need to be on in the middle of the night because no one's here to use it, hopefully. And so we've put these timers on just to reduce that amount of energy that is being used during the course of the night hours. We also encourage everyone to delete those emails. I'm very guilty of it. I do save emails for a long time, but those servers that support those emails are using up a lot of energy just to compile that data and keep it on their servers. So the more you can delete, the better it is. And just shutting down your computer at night is also very helpful. Something that requires extremely no energy at all is just putting some signage on your fume hoods and asking your members to bring the sash down. So we have shut the sash on all of our fume hoods, encouraging our lab members to just bring down those sashes, because when the sash is down, a lot less energy is used to power the fume hood. Another thing that has a really big impact is if you are able to purchase in bulk. This is not something that everybody can do, I understand, because of space limitations, but where possible, you'll greatly reduce your carbon footprint. And in most cases, you will save money. So it's a win-win for us. So as much as possible, we order in bulk. Okay. What we also do is we reduce our heating and increase our cooling by a few degrees. And most people don't notice it at all. And just those few degrees reduces our energy bill. And everybody is still very comfortable by only reducing it by a few degrees. We also team up with other labs. So we're lucky enough that we are in a hospital setting. And so we do have clinical labs who often have to send blood samples or samples to other locations. And they previously were purchasing ice packs. And I'm not sure how it is in your labs, but I know that we have an abundance of these ice packs. And so now we work with those clinical labs to they can come upstairs, grab whatever ice packs they need, and they don't have to order it, so spend the money or the resources to get it. We work with our health and safety team to increase our ability to reuse and recycle plastics. Now, in biomedical labs or bioresearch labs, this is a little bit more difficult because of the biohazard aspects of things. We can't always recycle plastics. Actually, most of the time we cannot. At OHRI, we do have a system in place where all of our biohazard waste goes into a biohazard tub, and those tubs are then sent to be incinerated for energy. So at least they're not going to the landfill. We're not putting them through an autoclave and then sending it to the landfill. They're being used for energy. So that's a plus. Where possible, we try to buy eco-friendly products. That's a little bit more challenging because at the moment, the eco products are generally more expensive, which is very unfortunate. But we feel that, and I've seen it in the last few years, that more and more companies are starting to offer green alternatives or greener products, and the prices are coming down. So just putting that pressure on your vendor to say, listen, I'm interested in this product, but if you drop the price down, I'm more likely to purchase it. Like I said, we turn off equipment, we put those timers, but we also actively just unplug things. So this holiday season, before we left for the break, I unplugged about 70% of our equipment. And a month later, I went back and about 40% are still not plugged back in. So although we have all this great equipment, it's not always used. So it doesn't always have to be plugged in, because even when it's plugged in, it's pulling from the system. So just unplugging it or just completely turning it off. And we also donate our old equipment, either to another research group or we've donated to a university and to even high schools. So technology changes really quickly. We always get some, or hopefully we're able to get some of the new equipment. And then our old equipment just sits there collecting dust and taking space in the lab. So why not donate it to another group or to like a school or a university who would be very appreciative to have it. So I'm just gonna change gear a little bit and talk to you guys about the freezer challenge. As I mentioned before, My Green Lab has all these different programs that they offer. The freezer challenge is one of their best ones, I think. It's worldwide, and all it requires you to do is to fill in a sheet and fill in some questions about how you thaw your freezers. Do you vacuum out the dust? Do you have good inventory? It's basically a questionnaire. And you submit this by July 1st, and then they do an evaluation, and then they determine how much energy you've saved. And so I'm happy to say that our group participated last year, and we finished in the top 20% of the participants. And we were able to reduce our energy consumption by 425 kilowatts per hour per day. So the way we did that is we took 95% of our minus 80s and we brought them up to minus 70. We didn't just do this on our own will. We had seen, well, we did it on our own will, sorry, but we followed the data from a Nature paper, which showed that there were very few or almost no consequences to bringing up your minus 70, your minus 80 to minus 70, the integrity of the sample stayed the same. So we went ahead and did that for 95% of our freezers. And we just made sure that all of our minus 80s and minus 20s are filled with racks. This allows you to not have to thaw your freezers as often. You're more organized, which then allows you to not keep that door open while you're digging for a sample. You can pull out your samples very clearly, and then you can close that door a lot faster. So I wanted to share that energy that we save, that daily energy consumption that we save, 425, what does that mean? Well, the average household is about 33 kilowatt hours per day. So we're essentially saving 11 houses worth of energy a day just by making some very, very minor changes to our minus 80s and our minus 20s. So I just wanted to let you know that you guys can also participate. This challenge happens every year. It's open right now. You just go online and you register, and then they will provide you with a questionnaire, and you just fill it out. And the good thing is there's a chance that you could win a new minus 80 to replace that old energy guzzling minus 80. Okay, so I'm just gonna switch gears just a little bit and say that current funding structures generally do not encourage grantees and institutions to be environmentally sustainable. So what I mean by that is we don't really have it built into our grants to be able to encourage the labs to be more sustainable. So we're hoping that you will join us in this project, and we hope that the granting agencies will start to provide possibly some funds for some of these programs. So instead of taking the grant money that should be going towards some of the research, there might be some funds available for these recycling programs, such as these glove recycling programs, or to purchase maybe some green products versus using the regular funds. So we're hoping that the granting agencies will hop on board and support these green initiatives as much as possible for research labs. And so with that said, we think that there should be a standard for labs to perform, if you'd like. So at the moment, we're currently participating in the MyGreen Lab certification program. So this program takes about a year to complete. We're about 6 months into it. It costs $500 per lab, but the more labs join, the cheaper it is. And what you do is you get a certification. So what happens is your staff and your students are sent a questionnaire. They're asked multiple questions about how purchasing is done, animal facilities, chemical waste, all these different issues. And then in the end, MyGreen Lab compiles that and gives you a rating. So currently we are at a silver with 56%, which was a little bit of a hard pill to swallow because we're all high achievers here, and 56 didn't sound like a very good grade, but I was told it was. And so we're now making some changes, and we're hoping that we are actually going to be either gold or platinum by the end of the certification, which I think would be really great. So we're hoping that other labs will do this too, and then there will be a kind of like a standard for how labs can be green. Okay, what else can you do? It never ends. So you can choose companies that will support green initiative and use sustainable energy and actively challenge those suppliers to be green. So since I've started this this movement in our lab, I've had multiple vendors come to me because they now know that I'm a green person. And so they're always bringing me products and introducing me to different things that they're working on, which I think is great. What I also think is great is that many of the companies have these kind of like green labels or energy saving labels. Although those are all fantastic, it requires the end user to really do the research as what does this label actually mean? And so we hope that there's going to be a more standardized label, and this ACT label or the ACT label we think is a really good one because it goes through different categories such as manufacturing, shipping, the product. And so in the end, you can look at that final impact factor and decide, oh, this product is better than this product. And if you're able to make that better choice, then why not? And so we're hoping that more companies are going to follow a more standardized labeling of their green products. and we're trying to keep the companies accountable. So here's an example of a colleague of mine who received a tiny little tube the size of her pinky finger in this box as large as she can sit in it. So obviously overkill. It wasn't dry ice, it was just on ice packs. And so we have a folder in our lab where we encourage all of our staff and students that if they receive a product that is what we call shipping ridiculousness, to record it. And then we take that to the vendor and say, listen, this is unacceptable. This isn't what you should do. This is terrible. And in the end, you're the consumer. And so they want to make the consumer happy. So by pushing back, we are seeing some changes. So we just create this folder and we keep keeping those companies accountable to what they're doing. Another thing you can do is actively engage your lab to participate in green events. Like I mentioned, we did Earth Hour and we did Earth Day last year, where we went into a local park and we picked up garbage bags, 12, 13 garbage bags worth of waste. And what was really nice is to get the lab engaged, but it was also to see that the community was asking us questions. Oh, why are you guys doing this? Oh, maybe I should start picking up in my neighborhood. So by being present in the community, it created a reaction. So I think that's important to do as an organization as well. Okay, so I'm just going to switch gears and just show you some small changes that we made that had like a huge impact. So a year and a half ago, excuse me now, we switched from the pre-packaged already sterile tips to the stackable reloading system. And we were able to reduce 400 pounds of plastic waste from being thrown in the biotubs. So the equivalent of close to 6,000 tip boxes. And amazingly, we saved more than $10,000. We don't realize that the convenience of having that sterilized tip box that's already wrapped does cost quite a bit of money. And so just by using the stacking system or reloading system, we were able to reduce a lot of plastic and save lots of money. We also recently, we did this year, we started in 2014. We've switched our DPBS and our cell culture media from plastic bottles to glass bottles. So we label them with different colored lids so that we know the same chemical that goes into each, or same cell culture media that goes into each. And by doing this, we're going to be eliminating 600 pounds worth of plastics from being put in the landfill. And it greatly reduces our carbon footprint, because you can see from that picture on the left here, it's a lot of bottles and packaging, and we have to have these shipments happen once a month. And now with the bags that we use, these 10-liter bags, we now only get 4 shipments a year. And once again, bonus, we save tons of money. So there are ways that going green does not cost more money, and in the end, it actually does save you money. Something else that we've done, and it's mostly, I would say on my part, because I do order the consumables for all of the lab, is I've been very conscious of placing only the order when we absolutely need it. So this year we've put a standing order in place. So I'm only getting 12 shipments during the whole year, and I only have to do a few little shipments here and there. And so we've seen a big increase, or decrease, I should say. So in 2022, we had 223 individual shipments. And last year, we were able to bring it down to 89. And this year, with my standing order, I'm hoping to drop it even lower, as low as 50, but I'm thinking I'm going to be between 50 and 75%, 75 individual shipments, sorry. And then lastly, a simple thing that you can do is just reach out to your facility managers. So those electrical, ventilation, plumbing, refrigeration, procurement, all these groups, surprisingly enough, already have green initiatives put in place, and they're just waiting for you to call them. So like I said, those aerators, the plumbers had them. They were like, sure, we're on our way. The timers for the light, no problem. Because I also found out that some of these facilities have their own green initiatives. So they are provided funds by the government if they buy the LED light bulbs or the timers. So just simply reaching out to them can help you in the long run to save energy. All right, and lastly, I'm just going to tell you what our next steps are, and that's to expand this to our entire institute. So currently we're the one floor that's doing it, but we're hoping to get the entire institute involved. And we want to continue speaking about the issue because we think it's really important. And again, actively engage those suppliers and vendors to provide greener option, and not only at the product level, but throughout the whole production. So delivery, their manufacturing, how green are their plants? Are they solar paneled? Are they using electricity from, are they using powered electricity? Are they using, are they using solar energy versus another type of energy? Just actively asking them to be engaged in the process. And also, we really believe that sustainability becomes a lens for all activity. So recognize that we must lead this change at work and in a larger community, so at home as well. And to stay passionate, because if you have passionate people, it doesn't get put off to the side. It keeps moving forward. So staying passionate and being involved, you will see changes. We see it right here with all of our students and with our staff, and we're really happy, and we hope that that's just going to continue. So on that note, I'd like to share a video with you guys. Some of you might know Jane Goodall. She is very much a big advocate for primates, but she is also a huge advocate for the environment. So please let me know if this is okay, and I'll just get this started. Hopefully this works. I don't think so. Oh no, I don't think it's working. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, unfortunately, guys, it's not working. So, but if you have a chance, please look at the Reasons for Hope. And oh, it is working.
I followed my heart into Africa to study chimpanzees. 35 years later, my heart led me out of the forest to help save the natural world. Species. 35 years later.
It's working. I wouldn't say it's 100% working.
Yeah, something's happening here. I'm not quite sure. Okay, I'm going to stop here because I'm not sure what's happening. It's like two things are happening at once.
And Carol, we'd be pleased to share it in the chat box here. Perhaps we can do that. We can multitask a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't seem to stop it. This is unfortunate. Hold on. I'm really sorry, guys. You can hear it, but you can't see it. There.
I can't hear it anymore either.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. We're going to skip the video. Okay, so that's all I have for you guys. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm here to answer any question you might have.
Perfect. Wonderful. So I'm having technical issues on my own side. I can't, for some reason, start my own video, but I just wanted to thank you and Dr. Auer very much for this presentation, for Rebecca's opening remarks, and for you for walking us through it. So to everyone who's participating, please do write some questions in the chat box, and I see one that I'll address momentarily. I also have some as well, but I just wanted to highlight what I thought was just absolutely phenomenal. So I think, to your point, the passion that you and the group that you've worked with have brought to this is just really motivational. So thank you for doing that, and very much needed, right? The evidence-informed approach that you took, for instance, turning your -80s to -70 was interesting, and I think that's a great approach. And also kudos on tracking, right? Because this is the best way. If you're looking for funding, then to be able to show impact is a really good way to say we need more funding for X, Y, and Z. Look at all of these initiatives that we've already shown have a benefit. So I think those are some high level things that I think are fantastic. I do have a couple of other questions, but before I jump into mine, I'll ask a question that has been raised by one of our participants, and that is a technical question. How do you transfer the PBS from the bags to the glass bottles? Do you need an autoclave? And if Don't you need to autoclave if you want to keep it sterile? And then would autoclave not be worse than plastic waste? So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the way we do it is we do transfer the PBS into the bottles and then we re-autoclave it. So we've determined that the plastic, the paper, the shipping from wherever it may be coming from. So for example, we purchase from one vendor, they are actually in California. So the goods are coming all the way from California. And so all of that, we think that the autoclave, in the end, we think the autoclave is the better option. So although yes, the autoclave does use energy, we've determined that it uses a lot less energy than everything that leads up to that bottle coming into my lab. And so, and I should point, I didn't get into the details, but for the PBS, for example, it used to come into 4 shipments. It now came in 1 shipment that was no bigger than 2 chairs, because the PBS is actually 10x times PBS, 10x. So we just dilute it and autoclave it. And so we just determined that the energy that was saved, or the energy that is used for the autoclave, is a lot less than everything else that would have had to take in place. Yeah. And for the media, we actually aliquot it inside of the BSC. So this media is sterile in these large 10-liter bags. We sterilize the bottles beforehand, and then we just aliquot it. That we aliquot the media in the bottles, and then we cap them, and then we use them. And we've had no issues.
Thank you. Another question has since come in. How have your suppliers responded when you point out the packaging ridiculousness?
They're embarrassed, because I think the sales rep are always like, oh, that came from us? And yes, it came from you. And so I think there's some embarrassment, but they do recognize that they have to do better, because they also see how ridiculous it is. Sometimes we get the, oh, that was the box that was available, which we think there are always better options. And we're hoping, I shouldn't say we're working, but some companies are starting to have like these hard shell containers where they're going to ship your sample and then you can ship it back. But again, there's a cost to that. So this is where we hope that the funding agencies might help to provide some funds to pay for these types of programs. Because right now it's hard to convince the PIs to use their own funds to pay for these initiatives, when they're like, well, I can get it for free versus having to pay for the shipping. So there is some, I don't want to say some give and take there, but there are some pros and cons for sure. So they're not happy when they see that I pointed out, but they do bring it back they tell me they bring it back. Now, I don't know if they fully do, but the reality is if they keep doing it, we'll stop purchasing from them. So.
Yep, I think exactly. I was going to say you've given them a stick and a carrot. So they choose is, I suppose, to some degree up to them.
At some point, the owner, it's on them, right? So.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. So great questions. If anyone else has questions, do post them in the Q&A. But I wanted to start with, well, I guess both sides. So what were the barriers to implementation across these different initiatives that you put into place? And then perhaps talking about how you got past those, how you found those solutions, et cetera.
So to be fair, there are very little barriers, because I was lucky enough to have Rebecca really pushing and saying, no, this is important, we have to do it. So that's where finding that team of people who want to see a change happen, I think that's key. And the biggest barrier truly is space for me at the moment, because I am ordering in bulk. I am ordering standing orders. So where do I put all this stuff? So that's the biggest challenge, to be fair. Otherwise, our group has embraced it. Everybody has participated. We've had some pushback in certain situations, and we've addressed their concerns. Like one of the concern was, well, what if the PBS gets contaminated? And so we put tests in place to make sure that the contamination doesn't occur. And so far, so good. And really having everybody having most people participate in that Green Ambassador program really helped, because it put everybody on the same page to kind of know what the goal is, how can we do better. So if it's just a few people, then it's a little harder. You're always pushing against the grain kind of thing. But when everybody has that same knowledge base, they tend to want to do better. Yeah.
And you mentioned Rebecca, but how do you deal with the more senior management or the facilities groups and others that I think, you know, you need the bigger buy-in from?
Yeah, so we're not there yet, I will say. So that's the next step, is really to push from the top, and trying to implement it throughout the whole OHRI. But like I said, our facilities groups have been fantastic. They've all, like, when we decided to put the timer on the light, the electrician was so excited because it was a new project for his people too. And so he was all in. Yes, let's do it. And so there was no pushback at all. Same thing with our plumbers. Our ventilation guys they don't care if we bring a degree down or not. Like there's not much pushback by the facilities at all. And I have to say, there hasn't been much pushback at all. So it's a pretty easy, like, once you start getting into it and you start implementing these things, it's kind of just second nature. Let's just do it because we can. So
that's fantastic. And so we have quite a diverse group, I think, just from who I can recognize on the call. I'd love your maybe advice on, depending on who the person is who was inspired by today and wants to implement this in their own institution. So what advice would you have in terms of getting started as of today?
Yeah, as of today, I would say, if you're really interested in starting this, start talking about it with your groups, coffee breaks, lab meetings. Just put it out there and just find out who can you find as an ally to back you up and to try to make those changes. It's hard if you want to try to do it on your own. So I didn't do it on my own. Like I said, we have a group of people on the lab. Sure, I'm maybe the one who's spearheading it a little bit more, but we have people throughout the lab that are helping. And so try to find those people and just start like a small community of what are the things that we can do. Start small. Don't go too big because then you'll get discouraged. But if you start small and work your way up, you'll see that it takes no time for change to happen. And so, and I know that maybe some of the groups that are on right now, some are maybe working in government, and so the regulations are different. Actively challenge those regulations. And because, like, for example, I was under the impression that we could not recycle our PBS bottle because it came into a level 2 lab, and that I thought that was put in place by our PHAC, but it's not. It's just us. It's our waste management. So our waste management can actually take the PBS bottle. We just have to make sure it's clean. But I was under the impression that it was the governing agency that was telling me I couldn't do it, but it's not. So just asking those right questions and just trying to find those answers. I know it's not always obvious, but somebody has the answer. You just have to find it who.
Wonderful. So no other questions are coming into the chat box, so I think perhaps we can end a little bit early. Before people log off, just a reminder, there will be a survey that pops up on your screen that's linked that's linked to Zoom. We would love your feedback to that survey just to help us improve this series. And also, I'd love to hear if you plan on implementing what you learned today, because it was very tangible, which is always refreshing. So that's on our end. And then in terms of on this session, I just really want to thank you, Carol, and also please pass along our thanks to Rebecca, who I believe ran off to clinic duty.
Yeah, it's a little strange to be in her office and she's gone.
Although I'm not, so to the host and panelists, an email just came in. I'm not sure if that's something you want
to for
share.
me. So that's for me. So sorry, I wanted to just say, if any of you have questions, you can email this email address and I can answer any question you might have. I can maybe provide some guidance if you're interested. Yeah, reach out to me at that email and I will gladly answer you.
Okay, and that's the OHRI green@ohri.ca. Well, that's a wonderful offer, because I can imagine, as you mentioned, right, it's getting started is the hardest.
Yeah, just getting started.
phenomenal source of information and expertise and experience. So with that, thank you to everyone who has participated. We will be posting this webinar on our website shortly. That will be linked to our YouTube page. So if you want to go back and take a look at Carol's notes, those will be front and center on the web page. So with that, thank you everyone, and big thanks again to you, and we'll see everyone soon.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Happy
Bye.
birthday.
Yes, happy birthday. Take care.
Bye, everyone.